If someone told me last year that I'd end up developing a PhD-level understanding of restraining order paperwork, I would have laughed, rolled my eyes, and gone back to rewatching The Office for the 13th time. But here we are. Before I tell you the full story of the strangest day of my life, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like our video. Help us reach as many people as possible. Thank you. My name is Victoria Lane, 32 years old, too broke for therapy but too sarcastic for a full mental breakdown. I live in a not-so-charming third-floor walk-up in Baltimore with a squeaky radiator, a cat named Chairman Meow, and an overwatered pothos plant that refuses to die. Life was boring in the kind of way that feels like a blessing after your 20s. Until he showed up. It started innocently enough, which I now realize is how every descent into horror begins. The first time I noticed him, I was standing in line at the local Trader Joe's, wondering if I had enough in my checking account to buy both almond butter and dignity. Spoiler, I only had enough for one. He stood 3 people behind me. Green jacket, gray beanie, generic white guy face, average in that invisible way that makes you immediately forget someone exists. But I didn't forget him. Because the next day, there he was again. At the post office this time, same green jacket, just standing there. Not in line, not mailing anything, just there. I told myself it was nothing. Probably a coincidence. Maybe he lived in the neighborhood. Maybe he also had a cat who hated him and a plant he couldn't kill. Maybe he was just a figment of my caffeine-deprived imagination. But by the 4th sighting, I stopped pretending. He was following me. There was no pattern. Some days I wouldn't see him at all. Other days, he'd be leaning against a wall across from my building or sitting in a coffee shop I frequented. Never doing anything overt, just watching, quietly, like some kind of sad indie movie ghost who didn't get the memo that haunting should be more dramatic. I tried to convince myself that I was being paranoid. I mean, who would want to stalk me? I'm not rich, famous, or even particularly interesting. My Instagram is 70% latte art and 30% badly lit selfies of me pretending to be amused by my cat. My job is soul-suckingly normal. I'm a data analyst. For a logistics company that ships boxes to other companies that also ship boxes. The most exciting part of my day is choosing between oat milk and dairy-free creamer. But one night, around 10 p.m., I saw him again. I was coming home from a trivia night where I was, as usual, the only person who knew how many Twilight books there were. 4, by the way, and no, I'm not ashamed. I turned the corner onto my street, and there he was, across the road, standing, under a street lamp like a stock photo of generic creep. I stopped. So did he. My stomach dropped in that very specific way it does when you're about to puke or make a regrettable online purchase. And then, he waved at me. Waved, like we were old friends. Like this wasn't deeply unhinged behavior. I bolted up the stairs of my building so fast I almost left my soul behind. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat by the window, clutching my phone, staring into the darkness and wondering if pepper spray had an expiration date. The next morning, I went to the police. That was a mistake. The cop at the front desk looked at me like I'd just interrupted his daydream about eating a sandwich. He took my statement with the enthusiasm of a DMV clerk and gave me a pamphlet titled, "What to Do When You Feel Unsafe," as if feelings were the issue. "You got any proof?" he asked, as I clutched my coffee like a lifeline. "I mean, no. But I feel like I'm being followed," he shrugged. "Could be coincidence. You'd be surprised how many people think they're being stalked when they're just noticing people more." I considered telling him that I wasn't some melodramatic teenager imagining a vampire romance, but instead I thanked him, through gritted teeth, took the pamphlet, and left. I didn't tell anyone about it, not at first. My best friend Jess would have probably gone full CSI on the guy, and my mother would have made it about her somehow. "This is what I was afraid of when you moved to that city. I told you to become a dental hygienist like Karen's daughter." So I tried to ignore it. That worked for 3 days. On the 4th day, I found a note in my mailbox. No name. No return. Address. Just one sentence written in crooked block letters on a yellow Post-it. "You looked sad today. I hope you're okay. I dropped it like it burned." Chairman Meow meowed at me disapprovingly. probably because I forgot to feed him, but I like to think he also sensed the deeply disturbing energy in the room. I started carrying a pocket knife and a stun gun. I signed up for Krav Maga classes and bought one of those keychains that doubles as a self-defense tool and a bottle opener. Because if I was going to be terrified, I was at least going to be hydrated and practical about it. I also started documenting everything. Dates, times, locations, what he wore, what he did. I downloaded an app that lets you fake call yourself when you're in a sketchy situation, and I memorized the number for the local women's shelter. I even moved my bed away from the window and slept with a hammer next to me. Yes, a hammer. Don't judge me. It was either that or a frying pan, and I'm not Rapunzel. By the time February rolled around, I was operating on 5 hours of sleep a week, and the kind of adrenaline high usually reserved for raccoons in garbage bins. I started seeing his face, in crowds, in reflections, even in dreams. I couldn't relax, couldn't focus, couldn't stop waiting for something to happen, because that was the worst part. Nothing ever happened. He just watched. No confrontation, no threats. Just that quiet, sickly smile and the green jacket. Always the green jacket. Like it was some kind of uniform for aspiring serial killers. Eventually, I told Jess. She made me promise to file a report again, this time with photos and dates. She even came over to install a security camera, like the badass she is. I tried to laugh it off. At least if I die, it'll make a great Netflix documentary. But the truth was, I felt like a ghost in my own life. Like I was watching someone else's bad movie. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't know why me. I didn't know when, or if, he'd finally crossed that invisible line between unsettling and dangerous. But I knew one thing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. My life slowly transformed into a low-budget psychological thriller, one of those you stumble on at 2 a.m., starring a former teen idol who now does local car commercials. Except I wasn't watching it. I was living it. And the man in the green jacket? He was my very own poorly written antagonist. At first, Jess thought I was exaggerating. Then, she caught a glimpse of him. We were walking to her car after brunch, both high on overpriced mimosas and bottomless cynicism, when she suddenly froze mid-sentence. "Vic," she said, grabbing my wrist. "Don't freak out, but look behind you, 2 o'clock. And there he was. Across the street. Standing near a bus stop he clearly had no intention of using. Same jacket, same expression, like he was trying to look inconspicuous but had never actually studied what that word meant. "Oh, good," I muttered. "He's back." I was beginning to miss my daily dose of dread. We speed-walked to the car. Well, Jess did. I power-waddled like a penguin in heels. Once inside, she locked the doors, turned to me, and said, "We're not playing nice anymore." That's when Operation Burn the Creep began. We filed another police report, this time with Jess doing most of the yelling. Her voice was so sharp, the officer actually blinked. I showed them the photos I'd been discreetly snapping. I printed screenshots of his reflection in store windows. I even played them audio from a voice memo I'd recorded when he mumbled something to me on the street. It was unintelligible, like bad ASMR mixed with a death threat. But it existed. "Still no direct threat," the officer said with the charisma of a boiled potato. "But we'll make a note." A note. Great. I was one note away from a Dateline special. Things escalated after that. I started receiving notes daily. Always handwritten, always unsigned, and always slipped under my apartment door. That was the part that really screwed with my head. Under the door. Meaning he got inside the building. Past the locked front entrance. Meaning he was closer than I thought. I begged my landlord for better security. He responded by raising my rent. Naturally. The notes were never threatening in the traditional sense. They were compliments. Things like, "You looked like you had a tough day. Hope work isn't draining you too much. Saw you wearing red today. It suits you. Red's my favorite color now. You shouldn't eat so late. It's bad for your sleep. Just looking out for you. Sweet, right? like if concerned dad and unhinged stalker had a love child. I started sleeping with the lights on. I changed my routine. I even considered moving until I remembered that I had exactly $430 in my bank account and $6,800 in student debt. Living the American dream, baby. I did what any woman on the verge would do. I started documenting everything on TikTok. Yes, TikTok. Jess convinced me it would help, both emotionally and potentially legally. So I made an anonymous account and began posting updates under the hashtag #GreenJacketGuy. My followers went from 34 to 3,000 overnight, then 10,000, then 50,000. Apparently, paranoia, but make it aesthetic, was the niche people didn't know they needed. I posted grainy videos of his silhouette. I posted audio clips. I read the notes aloud in a soothing voice as if I were narrating a horror podcast. People were invested. People were furious. They gave him nicknames. They speculated. They theorized. They offered to send me tasers, tracking devices, and, bizarrely, canned peaches. I wasn't alone anymore. But I wasn't safe either. Then came the knock. It was 3:07 a.m. I was half asleep on my couch, surrounded by empty wine bottles and the comforting scent of lavender essential oil and existential despair. When I heard it, 3 sharp knocks. Not the oops wrong door kind. The intentional kind. I froze. Chairman Meow let out a guttural, offended yowl and bolted under the table. I stood, heart pounding, and tiptoed to the peephole. My stomach flipped like a gymnast with a death wish. He was there, just standing, looking directly into the door, holding something. A box. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared until my eyes watered. Eventually, he left. Silent. Like some kind of horror movie UPS guy. In the morning, I found the box still there. No label, no markings. Just waiting. I didn't touch it. I called Jess, who drove over with a wrench, her boyfriend's pepper spray, and the energy of a woman who listens to way too much true crime. We opened it in the hallway like a couple of bargain bin detectives. Inside, a single Polaroid photo of me, asleep, in my bed. The world spun. My body went ice cold. Jess dropped the box. I think I vomited in my mouth a little. He'd been inside. That was the final straw. I called the cops again. This time, they took it seriously. Apparently, something about actual photographic evidence of a break-in tickled their bureaucratic threshold. They started a formal investigation, assigned someone to my case, advised me to stay with someone else. Jess took me in without hesitation. Her place smelled like sage and fury. For the first time in months, I slept. Sort of. I didn't go back to work. I couldn't concentrate. I barely remembered how to function. My TikTok followers tripled again. People sent well wishes, prayers, offers to beat him up, legal advice, weird DMs proposing marriage. It was bizarre. It was comforting. It was too much. And then, just like that, he disappeared. No sightings, no notes, no knocks, no photos. He vanished. The cops were looking into it. I stopped leaving the house. Jess made lasagna. Life hovered in that uncomfortable space between relief and dread, like waiting for a second slap. But one thing was clear. It wasn't over, because monsters don't just walk away. Not without a reason, not without a plan. 3 weeks of silence, no notes, no photos, no 3 a.m. door knocks. It was almost disappointing. Like I'd gotten used to the adrenaline, like a junkie mourning their last hit of terror. I should have felt safe again. Normal. But I didn't. I felt like I was in the eye of the storm. Calm only because the worst part was still circling overhead, waiting to rip the roof off. That feeling intensified when Detective Callahan showed up at Jess's place unannounced. I opened the door in my world's okayest person hoodie and saw his expression, tight-lipped, tired, and vaguely guilty. Like a man about to deliver news he'd rather staple to a telephone pole than say out loud. "We found something," he said. "Oh, good." That phrase always ends well. Callahan walked in and sat down at Jess's kitchen island, where so many takeout containers had died tragic, greasy deaths. He slid a manila folder across to me. I opened it with hands that didn't quite feel like mine. Inside, a name, a mugshot, an arrest report, the man in the green jacket. Real name, Michael Anders. Turns out he'd been arrested 2 days prior for breaking into an Airbnb 5 towns over. Tried to say he was checking on someone. Got tackled by the host's boyfriend wielding a broom and a bottle of Pinot Grigio. I blinked at the mugshot. It was him, but different. Cleaner, less haunted, still creepy, don't get me wrong, like a substitute math teacher who keeps a shovel in his trunk for gardening emergencies. But not the man who haunted my life for 4 months. Something felt wrong. Callahan cleared his throat. He confessed to stalking you. Just like that? He said it wasn't personal. My laugh came out sharp. Oh, good. I love being impersonally terrorized. He claimed, Callahan continued, that you reminded him of someone, his sister. She died 2 years ago. And that explains the Polaroid in my bedroom. How exactly? He never admitted to entering your apartment. Denies the photo. Says he only watched you from public places. So, he was a liar and a creep. A man of many talents. I should have felt vindicated. But I didn't. Something about the folder, the convenient confession, the way Callahan kept glancing toward the hallway, as if someone might overhear us in Jess's aggressively quiet condo, set my skin crawling. Waited for the other shoe to drop. It didn't drop. It plummeted. The next day, I got a call from my building manager. I thought you should know, he said casually, like we were old pals discussing sports and not home invasions. We had an incident. One of the security techs flagged something weird. Weird was an understatement. Turns out, someone had been accessing the building's security system remotely, watching the feeds, downloading clips, even unlocking the front door through the app. And guess what? The IP address traced back to a familiar place. My office, specifically to the desk of one Alex Reynolds, my coworker, my desk neighbor, my work buddy who always brought me extra coffee, who laughed at all my jokes, who once said, "You're too smart to be scared, Vic." Alex, with his nice smile and perfect posture and tragically boring khakis. Alex, the guy who helped me file my first police report. Alex, the guy who installed the security app on my phone. I felt the floor dissolve beneath me. I didn't want to believe it. But suddenly everything clicked together like some grotesque jigsaw puzzle made of red flags I'd mistaken for confetti. Alex had access to my schedule. Alex knew I lived alone. Alex worked IT before transferring to marketing. Alex had a green jacket. I'd seen it once in the break room. Thought nothing of it. He was always just there. Near enough to help. Far enough not to trigger suspicion. Just the right blend of charming and forgettable, like an extra in my own horror movie. I went. Straight to the police. They pulled his work computer. Found folders, hundreds of photos, footage from the cameras, voice recordings, even copies of the handwritten notes, drafts, with edits. Alex Reynolds was arrested 2 days later. He cried. He actually cried. Told the police it was a game. That he wanted to protect me. That he wanted to prove I was strong enough to handle being afraid, like I was part of some twisted motivational seminar with PTSD as the grand prize. The man in the green jacket? A decoy. Michael Anders was a mentally ill, homeless man Alex had found and followed, occasionally paid, dressed him in the green jacket, told him where to stand, when to walk past me, what to say. Anders had no idea what was going on. He thought he was in a social experiment for a film class. And the Polaroid, taken by Alex, from my ceiling vent. He'd had a hidden camera in my bedroom for months. My TikTok account? Yeah. He followed it, commented under a fake name, liked every post, said I was brave, said she'll make it through, said he's not who she thinks he is. That part? Not sarcasm. That part was true. After the arrest, everything unraveled, like a cheap sweater. My job put out a statement. HR acted shocked, despite the fact I'd literally filed a complaint about Alex's weird behavior months prior. Of course, nothing had been done. Shocker. The police offered protection, therapy, legal aid. My landlord raised the rent again. And me? I deleted TikTok, threw away my hoodie, cut my hair, bought blackout curtains, and still, I didn't feel safe. Because, how could I? I'd spent months terrified of a stranger. But the real danger had coffee with me every Monday, told me I had nice handwriting, called me resilient. The real danger didn't knock on my door. He held it open,